Tuesdays. I've got the lovely Beyla Ziv-Guest with me. And so, hi, Beyla, lovely to see you.
Great to see you, and you look fabulous. And we're joining the long hair club together.
Thank you very much. We are. Well, as I said to Beyla just now, that this is a great example of how you reflect the people that you spend time with. Because those of you who watch this, you know, sometimes that I come straight out of the gym. In fact, often I do this from the gym. Not that I'm allowed to, you know, because Beyla will know we met at Equinox Gym, and we're not allowed really to have the phones out, but. You see, sometimes I'm doing this from the treadmill, and today I knew that I'm going to interview the lovely, glamorous Beyla, so I made a bit of an effort. Funny thing with Beyla, we did actually meet in the gym, and I always noticed at the end of the gym, not only did she put her everything into it, but at the end it was like a magic wand was waved, and then this wonderful glamorous vision would come out of the changing room, and she would sit herself down with a coffee and read the FT. And this was day after day after day, and eventually we spoke, and then we've become friends over the last couple of years. And we only just discovered the other day that we actually share a birthday as well. So there's something in that. I think that's why we have so much in common. But anyway, Beyla's agreed to come on today to talk to us about how to be successful, and in particular her take on success, having had a very illustrious career in finance and banking. She'll explain more, and being a successful real estate investor as well. So Beyla, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are. Give us a bit of background first of all.
Yeah, Angela. I was very daunted by the title, by the way, How to Be Successful, but I'll give this a bash. I've come from very humble origins, and I think that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, was coming from quite a, well, it sounds awful to say disadvantage, because I don't even want to think about myself in that term, but coming from a background where there was no money, and it was just difficult, it was just difficult, made me an incredibly hungry individual. And I think success for me has been about just wanting to get out of where I came from and defining myself and choosing what my destiny would be. And I think coming from a sort of tricky background made it easy, because I was not coming from anything that was lovely. It was not a great place to be. And I had a very clear view of where I wanted to end up. And I think I was almost manifesting it before manifesting, I think, even became a thing. And subliminally, I just worked incredibly hard. It was not very glamorous. At school, I was a SWAT. I read, you know, it's just very nerdy, very, very nerdy start. I read a lot. I managed to get into Oxford, went to Harvard, but just through naturally being curious about the world, and also having a very clear view that there was an end point that I wanted to achieve, and that point was independence.
And when you were sort of, you know, mapping out that destiny, as you called it, there wasn't, you know, we didn't have social media like we have now. So, and you weren't surrounded by, you know, a professional network of individuals sort of opening doors for you and things like that. So a lot of your aspirations came from reading. I know you are an avid reader now. I know you read loads of newspapers and things, but that's obviously stood you in great stead right from the beginning, hasn't it?
Well, I've always been very passionate about finance. It was easy to decide what I wanted to do. But going back to an earlier point, it was actually very lonely. It was lonely because there was no networking. There was nobody to mentor me. I just had to be pretty single-minded about what my end point was. And just, it sounds ruthless, but it wasn't in a mean way. It was just, I was ruthless with myself in a way, and I was very disciplined and very focused on what I wanted to achieve.
And I think when people sort of see, you know, someone who's sort of glamorous, and, you know, you're always having fun, always so smiley and lovely, and, you know, you live a wonderful life now. But I think people sometimes think that they can't actually achieve that. But what they don't see is everything that goes on, you know, behind the scenes, all the work, all the late night working, all the head down, all the homework, all the studying to get to somewhere like Oxford. And then to enter this what was traditionally a male-dominated industry.
No, I can guarantee you there was no glamour. There was no Chanel necklaces. It was H&M and C&A at the time.
Yeah.
It was grim, but I was very passionate about what I was studying. I always just was very nerdy and very focused on achieving those goals.
So when you joined, you got your first job, and I know you've worked in asset management and hedge funds, and you've worked for some great names as well. Obviously you've climbed through the ranks, and it'd be good to hear a little bit about that, because people listening, they will work in big corporates, and it was different then. Particularly as a female, particularly in the finance industry, where I used to see a lot of females feeling the need to be more like a man to succeed in terms of how they looked and how they acted and everything. But you've kept that very sort of feminine persona around you the whole time. You've got two lovely daughters and everything. So tell us how you worked your way through and sort of balanced that with your femininity, and also, having a family as well.
Well, it was a very sexist environment, and the trading floors that I worked on were literally 90% men. And I remember how intimidating it used to be as a 20-year-old having to walk to my trading station, walking past 20, 30 traders at 7 a.m. in the morning, and having to endure their comments about my legs or my skirts or my hair or whatever. And this is way before Me Too. And you just sort of smiled and just walked on and didn't take much notice. But it was definitely strengthening to be in that kind of a world. One point I'd like to make, and I think one of the points that was helpful, was I focused very much on who I wanted to be as a person, and I wanted to be successful and financially independent. But I had a very strong urge to be a mother and to have a family. And the way I reconciled that was by very much staying female, and I look pretty much like I do now, but a bit younger and better. But
not better.
There was no. I definitely never denied my femininity, and I would say my femininity was my asset. And because I was one of the few women, it was helpful, because nobody ever forgot who you were.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I mean, that's one of the big benefits of being female in that type of environment. And I've experienced it as well, is sometimes, you sit around a table, like a boardroom or something, and if you're the only female, when you do actually ask a question, or you go to ask a question or make a point, then people tend to listen to you, and they, like you say, they remember who you are. So can use these things to your advantage as well. And I think that what you described there, walking to your desk with a whole load of guys, obviously it's banter and everything, and that is intimidating. But if you can get through things like that, and nowadays that sort of thing will still happen. There's still banter in the office and banter in groups and things, even if it's not the sexist kind. But if you can hold your own in environments like that, then this sets you up very much for then going to the next stage, which is managing people, presenting. And you did a lot of that as well, didn't you?
I want to go back. I always want to stay very authentic. So I am somebody who's very nerdy and very sorty, but I love clothes, I love shoes, and I wanted to stay that person also at home and in the workplace. So it was important for me not to change my image and just to stay who I am. But going on to the points that you've made, I would say probably the two most important skills that I had to learn to become successful. Number one was being able to talk in public and not being intimidated in a room full of men, very clever guys, to put up your hand and make a point, or in a room of 200 people making a presentation. And just, if you're not good, or if you're frightened about how to communicate and make speeches, just get coached, get coaching, get teaching. But being able to speak in public was probably one of my most important skills. And I used to do lots of conferences, and that would again raise my profile, raise my visibility within the industry. So public speaking and being able to communicate was a key skill. And I would say the second key skill is being able to climb through the hierarchy by learning how to manage people. And I think that if you're in a large organization, at some point you're going to be put in charge of people. And if you're viewed as a really good manager, you'll be promoted higher and higher and be asked to manage more and more people. So I would say those key skills that you can definitely learn were instrumental in my career.
Yeah, it's two really important points there, because both of those you can learn, but people are very, very fearful, particularly the first one, of speaking. And I was reading, there's someone who came on the show a couple of months back, and he wrote a book called And Death Came Third, because actually the fear of public speaking, when people in a poll sort of name their top fears, public speaking is the top one. But you can practice, particularly in this environment, on Zoom. It's a much safer space, really, and it's a great next step to to be doing it in person. And also, you can do it very frequently as well. If you want to do a blog or a vlog now, if you're doing it on video, or even if you want to just go live like we are now, it's really great experience. And at the end of the day, people just really want to hear what you say, not necessarily how you say it or your accent or anything. It's more about what you're actually saying. Now, that leads to the other point, which is to be able to manage people. And to be able to do that, you've got to communicate and make sense and be logical. But any other tips from you about how to be a good manager and a good communicator?
I mean, all the cliches come in. So there's a few things. It's actually leading by example. There's no point telling your team to do stuff if you're not doing it yourself. And obviously I was always the first one in, always the last one out. Having a very good work ethic. The other thing about teams is it's a team. It's not the Beyla Ziv-Guest show. It's teamwork and acknowledging. So I worked in asset management and hedge funds for decades, and it's a team effort. When you get those numbers, it's because the whole team is working together and making everybody feel really valued, whether it was my assistant or the top guys in the team. Having a sense of camaraderie and caring just made it a great place to work.
Yeah. When you decided, to start having your family, and obviously that would involve more challenges, more sort of time commitments, how did you marry that with still progressing within your career?
I think, like everything, it takes meticulous organization. Having the best help I could have for my children at home, and I admittedly it was expensive, but having the best childcare made me free up my mind so that during the day I would never worry about my children. And just being very, very, very mindful of time and how you manage that. So setting daily goals about what you want to achieve every day, setting weekly goals, setting monthly goals, setting annual goals. And it sounds like probably, I don't know, a very anal way to spend your time, but I found that unless I was very strict with my time management, things wouldn't happen. And then doing that at the end and seeing where did that work, where did that not work, and what can I do better? It's a very active thing.
And if you involve your children in that, and it sounds funny, as they get older, then they embrace that whole way of thinking as well. I mean, people know that, my daughter has co-founded Your Body Means Business with me. And but we look back and we laugh at some situations, when she was tiny. I think I may have told you this story where I always remember once, there she was in a little, I think they were Lion King slippers or something. And she's standing there and she saw my briefcase and she suddenly flung her teddy at me. And she said, okay, she said, you're nanny, I'm mummy, and I'm off to Paris. And she picked my briefcase up, which was almost as big as her, and just sort of stomped off, And I felt terrible at the time. I thought, oh my goodness, this is what she thinks, that someone else looks after the baby. But, she's turned into a very well-rounded young woman, as I know your children have as well.
Well, but my girls have turned out well, but I must say it wasn't always easy. And living in Switzerland for so many years, where there are literally zero women in the workplace, let alone finance, I had to come across some very unhelpful comments. Well, Beyla, you can't be a very good mother if you're not looking after your children, or doesn't your husband earn enough money? How come you have to work? And just being strong enough to know inside that I actually am a good mother. And it doesn't require me being there for my children 24 hours a day. But it looks easy from the outside, but there were some testing moments when the girls would come and wave goodbye to me at 6 a.m. in the morning when I went out to work, and they would wave goodbye to mummy and be crying that I was leaving so early. And of course now there's huge respect and love, and they know the sacrifices that I made to achieve my position. But it does take a few. There are some. It's not sacrifice free.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has to make their choices, don't they? And if you make a choice that you really want to succeed in something, you basically have to prioritize. I'm interested in some of your practices then and now, your daily practices to keep you positive, motivated, focused. And particularly then, you said some of the unhelpful comments that can drag you back sometimes and take you off target. So what were they? How have they developed? What are they now to keep you, so forward focused?
So I think I mentioned earlier, I was focused on the end goal and very, very mindful of what that meant before mindfulness and all of that became a thing. So
Yeah.
I was very clear, because I came from this strange place, I was very clear where I wanted to end up. And I knew that the journey would take the time that it would. So that was a very, very important part, was knowing where I wanted to end up. I would say today, it sounds like a cliche, but I'm constantly wanting to expand my mind. And I think that's what I was doing then, because I had school, I had O-levels, A-levels, Oxbridge exams. But I just have that mindset where I want to always come up and grow my mind. So I read a tremendous amount. And that's a very important part of feeling alive, feeling open to new ideas.
Yeah. And go on, sorry.
I would say second part, and I'd heard about meditating for decades, and I was coming from a very intellectual tradition, I was pretty resistant to meditating up until relatively recently, I would say. But now, in the last few years, I would say meditating in the morning and setting my intentionality and getting aligned to what I want to achieve in that day is a key part of the morning. And the other thing that I do, which I know, Angela, that your whole business on this, is just staying healthy and being very active physically.
Yeah. But you can achieve a balance with that as well, because, you also, you travel quite a lot still. You go to nice places, you eat out and things like that. So, you can stay fit, healthy, no matter how old you are and what your responsibilities are. It can be, you can fit it in, and you can continue to, well, you're a great example of this, to expand both your mind and strengthen your body as well. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think that's the beautiful thing about, personal development, both physically and mentally, is that that you can be better tomorrow than you are today. And by doing that, you're extending your longevity effectively and the impact that potentially you can make.
I think you've touched on a very interesting point, which is how women age. And it's interesting that women are, women never, I'm 50, I can't remember how old I am, 50 something, can't remember, but women are made to feel bad about aging, that somehow it's not seemly to be aging, and at a certain age, somehow women disappear, or women are not interesting or ugly, or, so I think part of the journey, now that I've sort of established my businesses, is defining myself as a woman and what it means to be a woman who isn't 25, but a woman who's in her 50s. And part of it is keeping intellectually alive, physically alive, but also not wanting to be defined by, she's just a middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
But choosing to be who I want to be, where, what is it somebody said, age is only important for cheese. Well, hello there, I'm not a cheese, right? And I think there's gratefully a new thing where women can feel more empowered even as somebody in their 50s. You don't have to be in your 20s or 30s to be interesting or vibrant or alive, and you can define who you want to be in your 50s.
Oh, you really can. And I know that it's hard for people to believe, but when you start to read the science and what's happening in the world of longevity, I mean, we will routinely be living to 120, if not to 150, if not to 180. Every year that we live healthily, the science is moving at such a pace that we are effectively buying ourselves another decade. And they believe that in 30 years, we will actually be able to choose how long we live. And I was talking to somebody in their late 70s and sort of explained this. And they said, oh, God, no, I don't want to live to 120. And I said, yeah, but if you feel like you feel now, if you're enjoying life like you are now, why wouldn't you? And if you start to think about change your mindset with regard to longevity, the truth of the matter is, in your 50s, potentially you're not even halfway there. And if you think about it like that, of course you're going to want to maintain what you've got physically, but certainly develop your brain. We have no idea about the capacity of our brain. And by reading avidly and by expanding our mind, as you said, it means that we're going to be able to do numerous more careers if that's what we want to do in the future. Because of course, if we're going to be around that long, we've got to earn the money to pay for our lifestyle. So I think,
and also not being defined by how the media defines a 50-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Oh, she's too old to have long hair. or, oh, she's too old to wear a mini skirt, or
Yeah.
no, who said that? If you just embrace and decide who you want to be and what you want to be.
Completely. And we share that with Madonna, since she shares the same birthday as us as well. So we're all of the same school of thought there. So people that want to, reinvent themselves, women in particular, since we've been talking about women in business, and it'd be really interesting to get your view on reinventing themselves, not just in their career, but obviously we'll talk about that as well, but maybe physically, if they're feeling a bit jaded, they're feeling that they're now, becoming invisible, everybody else is more important, they're not being looked at. I mean, certainly, you are such an amazing example of this, where when you walk into a room, everybody is, you're going to attract their attention because you're so stunning, but you've got so much to say. And, this is a real role model. So what sort of advice would you give to any woman?
I think it starts with how you feel inside. And I think you can look a certain way, but if you don't feel it, so it starts with how you feel about yourself, and sort of exploding with joy. And I know that sounds so, it's an everyday thing. So when I meditate every day, I focus every day on how do I become as radiant and joyful and happy as I can be. And I have a choice. I can choose how I want to feel that day. I can either be annoyed because it's raining and it's miserable and it's cold and the plumbers come late and the washing machine, or I can say, okay, it's another great day. I'm going to choose how I want to feel. And I will reprogram and reset my mind and choose how I want to feel. So I think it all starts with how you feel about yourself inside. And then, of course, there's how you visualize yourself and how you want to project yourself to the outside. So part of it comes from how you're feeling. But also, I think if you're exercising, if you're feeling great, if you've got a visual ideal, and thank God we've got so many things that we can cheat with nowadays, and we can get our hair blonded and we can get our Botox tweaked or whatever it is that you can do. Well, let's use it. If you want to feel better, you've got to also look better, and it's quite holistic, but I think it starts from feeling great inside.
Such a lovely point. And people they talk about gratitude, but almost brush it off, and I know sometimes when we get to the mindset section of YBMB on the program, and I start to talk about, daily practices and morning routines and talk about meditation and gratitude, and say people, yeah, I do that, but, they've heard of it, but do they really do it? There's a difference between saying, yeah, I'm grateful, and actually really feeling it and really counting your blessings and thinking about, the things that you are truly blessed with. And Tony Robbins says this. He says you can't be angry, fearful, if you are grateful. I've actually tried it. Can I be annoyed and grateful at the same time? You just can't. So that's such a great point to sort of reset yourself internally first, and then think about the outside.
The part that I really love is that you have the choice.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling you to feel miserable because it's just a miserable day. You have the choice to decide how you want to feel.
Yeah.
And you can literally program your brain. And I've done it, but I've had moments of pain and horrible times, and it's a vicious circle. You sink deeper and deeper into the mire. You think you're old and you're fat and you're ugly and you're miserable and you're just ugh. But hey, you can choose who wants to be in that downward spiral. You can choose not to feel like that, and you can do stuff to help you not feel like that.
Yeah. And any type of progress really contributes to inner happiness, no matter if that's progress in terms of, your body, how fit you're getting, how you're looking, what you're reading, what you're learning, people you get to meet. So no, those are some great tips. And what about some practical things if people want to change their financial state? So maybe they've had a job and they don't anymore. Maybe they've had a business that's failed, or maybe they just feel stuck in a rut, and they're thinking, wow, what these two ladies have just said about being in their 50s, there's time for me. Well, how do I reinvent myself in a business sense? What sort of things would you say?
I always think you have to focus on what you're passionate about and what excites you. So for me, it happens to be finance and business and that whole world. But I think if you're passionate about a certain aspect of clothing or a certain aspect of beauty or whatever it is, to actually follow what you're naturally interested in. Because if you're naturally interested in it, it comes effortlessly, and it's not something you have to work at it, but you're working at it because you feel passionately about it. So always to focus on an area of business that you are interested in and where you feel you can make a real contribution through hard work. Because none of this comes easy. It hasn't come easy for you, Angela. It has certainly not come easily for me. And it takes work all the time. Roger Federer did not become Roger Federer overnight. He spent years and years and years practicing. And that's what we're always doing.
Yeah, and when you're interested in something naturally, you do tend to go to it and read. It's almost ironically, you know, you'll do your work and then you'll go and read the thing that you're really interested in. I've spoken to people before about this where, you know, the example I've often used is there was a guy that he was very, very interested in horse racing and particularly, you know, thoroughbred, very expensive horses. But he was in insurance, and I said to him, well, can't you combine it? You know, don't they insure racehorses like that? And anyway, to cut a long story short, he actually started a business in bloodstock reinsurance and did really, really well, because now he was doing the thing that he was naturally really good at, combining it with the thing he was naturally really interested in. When you work on something that you're naturally interested in, you just automatically know more than other people about it. You know, whether that's history, whether that's finance, politics, you just know more about it. And so that immediately gives you an edge. And then the next thing is, you know, I know that, you know, you've got a profile on LinkedIn, Beyla, but you know, you're not one of those that is very out there on social media, but you are on LinkedIn still, and most professional people are. And, you know, if you, for example, choose a subject, you can go onto LinkedIn, you can put that subject, you can search for jobs, you can search for opportunities, and then you can start your campaign really of resetting your career.
And I just think also knowing that it doesn't come down from heaven. You know, everyone has to work at it. There's no silver bullet, but if you're passionate about it and interested in it, you'll be doing it from a position of wanting to get better and wanting to do more at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of other things then. I know you exercise a lot. How do you stay trim? What sort of what's your tips for eating and for, you know, general things like that? Give us some sort of tips that ladies can follow.
I don't know if I'm the best person. I think
you're so glowy. You're so.
I'm glowy because I do exercise every day. My food is slightly erratic, so I have a terrible chocolate habit, I will confess. I just think, so the one thing that I do, and I do this religiously, is, I mean, it's so boring, but I weigh myself.
Yeah.
So, and I can't kid myself about, you know, the number doesn't lie. So I do have splurgy days. I probably drink, you know, every 3-4 times a week. I eat chocolate, but I do weigh myself. So I'm in total reality about the number, and that kind of reins me in.
That's a great tip. You know, again, that's one of the things that we teach is knowing your metrics, you know, knowing what you're putting into your mouth, even if it is chocolate and whatever it is, which is absolutely great, because I think, you know, life is for living, but being aware of the metrics and not sort of, you know, why be an ostrich about your body? I mean, know what happens to it, know what's, you know, there, we can now know what's going on in our blood. We can know all of our biology if we choose to. We can do a hell of a lot on the preventative medicine side, and weighing yourself every day, and, you know, doing things like counting how much water you have, making sure you have at least a certain amount of water. These are simple things that can enable you to get balanced but still look and feel great.
But it's also about being honest with yourself, because there's no point living in denial. So I think a lot of my life has been about knowing where I'm at. Yeah. So if you want to get to somewhere, you've got to know where the heck you want to, where you're starting off from. So if you want a body like Lara Croft in, you know, Angelina Jolie and Lara Croft, you've got to know where you're starting from to reach that objective. So being very clear and not in denial.
Yeah. And it's never too late to start. You can start at any time. I mean, you and I have been members of Equinox, you know, for what, 2 or 3 years, but I know you have a personal trainer, etc. as well, but it's never too late to start a fitness regime, a new career, a choice to be happy. So I think that's really where we could leave the conversation, because you are
one more thing. I just visualize where it is you want to be, and you can define who you want to be. So do that, whether it's how you want to look, what you want to achieve in your business. Just define who you want to be, then you have an end goal and visualize it, and then you will achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. Just one last thing, since, you know, you read so much as well, are there any particular books or, you know, anything really, materials that people ought to have a read to sort of start this journey if they really want to, you know, do a reset?
I don't think it's particularly that about reading. It's about looking into yourself and deciding what you want to be and who you want to be. It's more about looking inwards, I would say.
Yeah.
And there are some very inspirational things on the internet, manifestation videos that are very helpful. But I think it starts with just looking and writing down.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? What are your goals? What do you visualize? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be?
Yeah. And then everything is possible.
Yes.
As long as you give it time, which we now have. All right. Well, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much, Beyla. I'll see you soon. And yeah, it's been great to have your tips. So everybody who has enjoyed this chat, have a little look. You can see Beyla on LinkedIn if you want to find out a bit more about her. And if you want to find out about the Your Body Means Business program, we'll give you a link there as well. And we follow a number of people in Beyla's area. So, if you want to also follow that subject and learn a bit more about the finance world, then you can do that too. So lovely to see you and take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.